Just wanna be with you. Just wanna be with you.
Giving to your local church should be easy, and with Tithely, it is. Just download the app and securely register your credit or debit card. You're done. Now you can give during church services or anywhere else. Use Tithely to give a one-time gift or set up recurring donations. It's that simple. It's fast, secure, and easy to use. Tithely, the simplest way to give to your local church.
Hi, welcome to Newsoul Ribera Church Online. I'm Jackie, and I'm so glad that you joined us today. I hope that you and your family had a great Thanksgiving. I always look forward to Thanksgiving every year because we get to gather with our family and loved ones and show gratitude for what God has done for us. Let us know how your Thanksgiving was in the chat. Also, are you already preparing for Christmas? Let us know if you already have your Christmas tree up in the chat. Are you ready for service? We have some amazing things prepared for you today, and I know God has a specific word for you. Pastor Steve is going to continue his series talking to us about how to repair and renovate the relationships in our lives. If you missed last week's service, you can go to newsoulribera.com, or there's a link in the comment section below. I encourage you to catch up if you missed last week.
Good morning, church. Good morning, Newsoul. Let's stand up and worship together. But it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. Came along. Then you came along and put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied right here in your love. There's nothing, oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, Now I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley. And there's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. You know there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing. But nothing is better than you. Come on, stir it up. Yeah. Morning to dancing. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. And you're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. Graves into gardens. You turn graves into gardens. It's what you do. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Graves in the gardens. You turn graves into gardens. That's what you do. You turn bones into armies. Every time you turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. And you turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. And you're the only one who can. You're the only one. You're the only one who can. You're the only one. You're the only one who can.
Life can be tough sometimes. COVID, work, relationships, just life. We'd love to pray for you. You can call or text us and someone will call or text you back, whichever you prefer. Or just say, I need prayer in the comments below and someone will contact you to pray for you. Ladies, we want to invite you to join us for some fun friendship food and making tamales together on Saturday, December 11th. Take a break from the holiday rush and just take some time to relax and have some fun with us. There's more information in the comment section below or at newsoulribera.com. Space is limited, so please sign up to reserve your spot today. Giving is a part of our worship too. What we do with our money tells us what we value or what or who we trust with our lives. When you give 1% of your income to God each week, you're putting His kingdom first in your life. Your generosity is what allows us to come into your home or your car or your phone or wherever you are. Not just for you, but for so many others, like in Pecos, Las Vegas, my hometown, Albuquerque, Los Lunas, Villanueva, Gonzales Ranch, Lovato, even South Carolina and Oklahoma. When you give to Newsoul Ribera, you are investing in God's work in the world and especially in the Valley. You can text to give by texting the word blessed to 94000, or you can give online by clicking in the link below or going to newsoulribera.com. Or you can give by mail. Our address is on the screen in the comment section below. So, are you ready to get some relationship help? Grab some coffee or your favorite drink and relax. This series is called Fixer Upper, a beginner's guide to repairing, restoring, and renovating relationships. Here's Pastor Steve. I'll see you at the end of this message.
I fail a lot. I'm a creative and a dreamer, which means I tend to take big risks and I fail all the time. And I talk my ideas out and it helps me refine those ideas, which means what starts out looking like a really great idea, after about a minute or two of talking it through, it sounds like a terrible idea. I'm married to someone who's the opposite of me. She is right a lot. And maybe some of you are around people like this. So I've learned that if we have a disagreement, I'm to blame a lot, even if I don't figure out how right away. It takes me a minute. Sometimes when I can't figure out how I'm wrong, Renee will, throughout a discussion, I'll kind of figure out, oh, I know how I'm wrong. And sometimes I think, even if I can't figure it out, I think to myself, well, if I hadn't asked you to marry me in the first place, this would have never happened. And what this means for all of us today is, given enough time, we can all find a small way in which the conflict we're having with someone else is partially our fault. It's kind of like the pie many of us had this week. If this whole pie is all the fault that's available for the breakdown of the relationships, we'll call it the blame pie. Then at least even a tiny little slice of that pie just might belong to us. It could be that there was something that happened years ago or months ago, or maybe even recently as yesterday or today. Whenever there is relational conflict, someone is to blame. And here's what I know about you. It's never your fault. You are never, or maybe only rarely, to blame. You're mature. You see the big picture. You're easy to get along with. You're reasonable. But if you've been tracking with us in the last few weeks in this series, and if your goal is to get back to, not get back at the other person you're having conflict with, then maybe, just maybe, you need to have a little more pie, a bigger slice of the blame pie. So today, we're in part 3 of a 4-part series that's entitled Fixer Upper, a beginner's guide to repairing, restoring, and renovating broken relationships. And we've learned that we as humans, we're pretty good at starting relationships, but we struggle with broken relationships and putting them back together. And when our relationships aren't going the way we want, or they start going off the rail, we learn that we tend to use the C4 relationship management method, because all of us love it when the people in our lives try to handle or manage us, right? Wrong. None of us like being managed or controlled by loved ones. So quick pop quiz to check how well you remember what we've learned so far. The C4 relationship management method tools are: A, convince others with good information; B, convict others with guilt and shame; C, coerce others with investigation and surveillance; D, control others by shutting down and withdrawing our support; Or E, all of the above? Well, we've learned that none of these management tools ever work. And when we use them in our broken relationships, we manage to make things worse. So if you got letter E, if you said letter E, all of the above, you're correct. They don't work on us and they don't work on others, but that doesn't keep us from trying to use them over and over again. When the C4 relationship management tools don't work, we get frustrated. We're frustrated because we're shut out, so we just shut down. We feel locked out, so we just lock down. Or maybe you do the opposite, which I tend to do a lot of the times, and I say more until I've said too much, because nothing you've tried is working. And when that happens, we tend to make one of these three excuses. The first one's insidious because it's tricky. I don't care. Have you ever said this? I don't care. I don't care anyway. When a relationship is breaking down or is shattered, and instead of trying to repair or restore the relationship, you hear yourself saying, I don't care. Pay attention to that. When you start thinking, I don't even care anymore, pay close attention to that. Because I don't care equals I actually care deeply. For example, in the last month, how much have you thought about Fruit Loops all having the same flavor no matter what color they are? Or the ingredients in a hot dog? Or the fact that bleach expires? Or how cold rubber bands last longer? Or how chalk is edible? Do you know why you haven't thought about any of these things? That's right. Because you don't care about them. They don't matter to you. But when it comes to broken relationships, when we say, I don't care, is it possible that we actually mean, I actually care deeply, but I feel powerless to do anything about this? But I wish that I could. The reason this is so destructive is when that you decide that the reason you aren't trying to restore the relationship is that you just don't care. You become unhealthy because you begin to disconnect from that person or those people, and you take all that negative energy, all that anger and pain and disappointment and hurt, and you take it with you into the rest of your life, and you bring it with you into your next relationship and into your other relationships. And what's even worse, your share of the blame pie might be tiny, but you take that relational tension with you into your other relationships, and it sets you up for history to repeat itself in your life. The second excuse we make when we don't think we can make the relationship better is, I already tried. This is arms crossed, and I'm just going to wait here for them to come to me. This is a problem because, like we talked about earlier in this series, the goal in trying to repair, restore, or renovate a relationship is no regrets. The goal isn't to reconcile the relationship because you can't control all the parts, namely the other person. It's not like a broken plate or a shattered iPhone that you can just replace the parts or glue it together. That even if this relationship is never repaired, restored, or renovated, that every night I'm going to go to bed without any regrets, that I'm going to end my life without a regret because I did everything I could to leave the door open, to leave out the welcome mat, for them to come home to our relationship again. That I removed every obstacle between us, that I didn't just cross my arms and wait for them, but instead I leaned in towards them. It's an attitude of our minds and a direction of our hearts. If you're just joining us in this series, we've learned that in order to repair, restore, and renovate broken relationships, there are 4 decisions we need to make. The first one is, I'm going to get back to, not get back at, and that you've taken retribution, revenge, and payback off the table. that you're going to pursue and not punish. When you make the excuse, I've already tried, you are undeciding the first decision to get back to, not get back at. The third excuse we make is, it wasn't my fault. This is usually where our internal narrative, the story we tell ourselves of why we don't talk to that person anymore and why we're not in each other's lives anymore, that it's basically not your fault, that it's all on them. That's where it ends, isn't it? It wasn't my fault. And that may be true, but if you've been with us in this series, that's really not the point, because repair begins with us, regardless of who initiated the fuss. And it's not just cute. Listen carefully. The healthiest and the most mature person in the conflict and in the relationship should go first in trying to repair the relationship. Why? Because they are the most mature and the healthiest. And you're the healthy and mature one in the conflict, aren't you? The other person is the one with issues, right? They're the ones with the problem, aren't they? Not you. You would never, not like them. So you should be the one to initiate the repair and the restoration and the renovation of that relationship, right? I know that the only kinds of people who are watching right now and listening right now and who gather with us every week are the mature and the healthiest. And if you're a Jesus follower, you call yourself a Christian, you have no choice. Because at the core of your faith is a story of God who gave his only son to die for you while you were still a sinner, while you were running away. He so loved the world that he moved in your direction. He didn't wait. He made the first move. And the main rule, the commandment that Jesus' followers follow is, I will do for others what God in Jesus has done for me. And to help us do this, Jesus asks a disturbing and invasive and irritating question. It's almost like he knows what he did or she said or what they're doing. And after he hears your story of why your relationship has broken apart, even if you're an atheist or agnostic or have walked away from faith, Jesus asks this question. He says, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your eye? Why are you so focused on that itty bitty thing that she did or that he said that you can do nothing about, instead of focusing on this huge thing you're doing that you can do something about? So let's look at some possible responses that we might have to Jesus' question. Well, Jesus, there isn't really a speck in their eye. It's not a speck. It's bigger than that. Or there isn't a plank in my eye, Jesus. I don't know if you realize this or what your vantage point is, but there's no plank in my eye. I see it clearly. Or C, Jesus, you're confused and you've reversed it. Or D, because I'm an expert in seeing the flaws in others and I need help seeing the flaws in myself. Well, obviously the answer is C. Jesus is confused and reversed it. Duh. I mean, I know I'm talking to Jesus, so I know I'm not perfect, but I was there for this. I have it on video. I have witnesses. The evidence is overwhelming. I see clearly what is going on, Jesus. My vision and my perspective is accurate, and clearly it wasn't my fault. And if they will ever see as clearly as I see, they will see it is clearly their fault. And hey, I'm around when they want to come and talk to me about it. Actually, if you said D, you're right. Okay, so maybe you say, okay, Jesus, are we done here? I think I get the point. He says, no, we're not done. I've got a second question for you. How can you say to your sister, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there's a plank in your own eye? How can you say to your daughter, your aunt, your boss, your spouse, that person you're having conflict with, would you just shut up and listen to me? Just sit down and see this situation the way I do. Allow me to correct you. Let me fix you. You're insecure. You're broken. You're relationally immature. And Jesus is saying, do you see this conflict clearly? Really? Are you sure? Jesus is saying, you're not wrong. You just have things out of order. You don't see things as clearly as you think you do because you have more work to do. The phrase here, all the time, is one Greek word that could be said another way here. Let me take the speck out of your eye when, mira nomás, there is a plank in your own eye. Or, let me take the speck out of your eye when, check it, there's a plank in your own eye. I think Jesus smiles as he says what follows. He says, you hypocrite, come on now. You're fronting, you're playing, you're a faker, you're an actor, you're a pretender, you're busted. So we might say to Jesus, okay, so what you're saying here is that I have my issues and they have their issues. So the point of your questions is really, Jesus, you're telling me I should just mind my own business. Got it. Message received. And Jesus would say, no, this isn't a lesson in minding your own business. This is a lesson in reconciliation, in repairing, restoring, and renovating broken relationships. Jesus' point is that you should start with your own business, but it doesn't end there. Listen carefully to Jesus. He says, you hypocrite, first. See, if there's a first, there must be a second and maybe a third. He says, first take the plank out of your own eye. Before you fix them and correct them and get them to see things your way, before you talk to other people about changing them, first take the plank out of your own eye. You're getting things out of order, which makes sense because what happened was horrible. What they did and what they're doing is so painful. I get that. But before we get to fixing them, we've got to begin with you. You need to identify your slice of the blame pie. Some of you are thinking, I know where that blame pie belongs. Right in their face. Some of you can't see your slice of the blame pie. So I want to challenge you today, right now, to pray this prayer from your heart. Sincerely and honestly. Say, Heavenly Father, please show me my part of this conflict and where I am to blame. And if you don't believe God answers prayer, pray that one sincerely and honestly and see what happens. Maybe you're thinking, but what I did was just a reaction to what they did. So Jesus would say, start right there. But what I did was so tiny. Start right there. Just pray, Father, show me what I could have done differently. I want to deal with myself right because that's the only person I can do anything about. If things change on their end, great. But Father, I want things right between you and I. So show me my slice of the pie. So then Jesus makes a promise to anyone who will take his words seriously, to put them into practice and to follow him. He says, and then you will see clearly Finally, which makes sense because you took that plank out of your eye. That was an obstacle to you seeing clearly. You can't see clearly as long as you're worried about what's in the other person's eye. That's not all. That's not the end of the sentence. There's not a period here. Listen carefully to what Jesus says next. Following Jesus never stops with me, and it's not all about you. And it's not about, wow, I'm a better person now. What God is doing in me and what God is doing in you is not the end. Jesus doesn't just want you to be someone with vision or a clearer seer. That would be missing the point. It's a means to an end. And relationships are always, always, always the end. Then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Maybe you owning your slice of the blame pie is the obstacle keeping them from seeing clearly. Maybe your humility will give them the courage they need for that speck in their eye to be removed. Your approach is, if there is something about me that is keeping you from a healthy us, then I will cut myself a slice of that blame pie. And this is hard, really hard, because within you and within me is a chunk of self-righteousness. That part of us that is convinced that we are right, that your perspective is the right one because you said so. And you are so certain that you are right. You know what kinds of people Jesus was hardest on when he was here on earth? Not gay people, not people who were drunk all the time, not child molesters, not even murderers and rapists. Jesus' harshest words were towards the Pharisees, the religious moralists and teachers of Scripture. It wasn't because they were dumb. They were smart and educated. They pursued knowledge and truth. It wasn't that they weren't trying. They sacrificed and were self-disciplined and they prayed. But they were so self-righteous. They were so sure of themselves. They spent all their time pointing out all the specks in everyone else's eyes, that they never addressed the logs in their eyes. They thought they were better than everyone else. When it comes to repairing, restoring, and renovating broken relationships, self-righteousness gets in the way. But self-awareness paves the way forward. So if you're going to repair the broken relationships in your life, you have to at least make 4 decisions. The first one we learned last week, that I will get back to, not get back at. The second, what we learned today, is I will own my slice of the blame pie. Not so that I can be a better person or that my conscience is clear, but because I want to see clearly so I can get back to them. So I can see our relationship more clearly and be in a better position to hopefully repair, restore, and renovate the broken relationship. As we close today, I want to share something the Apostle Paul wrote in a letter. He said, if it is possible. This means that sometimes it's not possible. As far as it depends on you, your slice of the blame pie might be tiny, but you've owned it. And you're doing all you can to remove any obstacle to a healthy relationship. He says, live at peace with everyone. Everyone. This means that reconciliation always begins in the mirror. The more traumatic the conflict, though, the bigger the impact on your finances, your access to your children or grandchildren. Maybe you lost your house or your job as a consequence. Maybe there's health consequences now. Those things are so painful that it's harder to take your eyes off that other person and to look into the mirror. This is not easy. It's much easier to focus on the other person. So when you pray, Heavenly Father, this feels insulting to even pray this. But if there's any part of the blame pie that belongs to me, I will own it. Please show it to me. And when you do that, it may be the beginning of freedom for you. You can't do anything about them. You've already tried, right? When you begin doing what you wish the other person was doing, you are following Jesus. Some of you might be thinking, I wish Saul was watching this, or I wish Esther was here for this. We're always convinced that it's all about the other person, but if we aren't willing to do what we're convinced they should do, what does that make us? Then Jesus was right. That makes us hypocrites. But if you're willing to go first and own your slice of the blame pie, you might need to write a letter, send a text, make a phone call, invite someone to coffee or lunch. Some of you have been on the other side of this when someone else went first, and their humility was the key that unlocked the door of your heart in a way that you couldn't unlock on your own. And by them humbling themselves and going first, it gave you the courage that you needed to admit your own fault and make things right. It might be hard for you to imagine this, but this happens all the time. Maybe that other person knows that most of the blame pie is theirs. They know that they're at fault. They feel this guilt and shame, but they don't know quite what to do with it. Just like no one teaches us how to repair broken relationships, no one teaches us what to do with guilt and shame, right? But even if nothing changes on their end, this is what it looks like to follow Jesus. I've learned that the more aware I am of what God has yet to do in me, the less aware I am by what He has yet to do in the people around me. So, today, are you weary from carrying heavy relationship burdens today? Is it keeping you up night? Do you keep rehearsing it over and over and over again in your mind? Well, Jesus invites you to come to Him, to follow Him, to take seriously what He's saying, to trade your relational approach for His relational approach. He says that He is gentle and humble of heart. He says that if you do, you will find rest for your souls. So, we've covered 2 of the 4 decisions so far. I will get back to, not get back at, and I will own my slice of the blame pie. Imagine what would happen in our families, in our communities, what the holidays would be like, our nation, and in the whole world, if we all paused and just took this one lesson from Jesus seriously. So, I invite you to follow Jesus in this way. I invite you to go first, and I invite you not to miss part 4 of Fixer Upper, a beginner's guide to repairing, restoring, and renovating your relationships. Thank you for your attention. I'll see you next time.
Let me pray for you as we close today. Dear Heavenly Father, I just thank you for everyone who is watching today. We know it's not by coincidence, but by your intention that we are all here together today. Father, I pray that as we reconcile with our relationships in our lives, that your hand would be placed upon that, Father. I pray for open hearts on each side, Father, and that it would just be mutual, Father. And just like in the prodigal son, Father, when he was going back to his father, his arms were wide open for him. I pray, Father, that as we reconcile and restore relationships, Father, that the other person on the other side would just be willing and open with open arms, Father. Father, we thank you for your grace and your mercy. And I pray that your love and your joy and your peace would just flow through each person watching today, Father. Thank you for joining us. We hope that you have a great and blessed week, and we hope to see you back with us next week. God bless you.
We worship you, Lord.
for the moments where I'm still in your presence. All the noise dies down. Lord, speak to me now. You have all my attention. I will linger and listen. I can't miss a thing. Come on. 'Cause Lord, I know my heart wants more of you. My heart wants something new, so I surrender all. 'Cause all I want is to live within your love, be undone by who you are. My desire is to know you deeper. Lord, I will open up again, throw my fears into the wind. I am desperate for a touch of heaven. Whoa, 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 whoa. You're the fire in the morning, you're the cool in the evening, the breath in my soul, you're the life in my bones. And there is no hesitation in your love and affection. It's the sweetest of all. My heart wants more of you. My heart wants something new, so I surrender all. 'Cause all I want is to live within your love, be undone by who you are. My desire is to know you deeper. Lord, I will open up again, throw my fears into the wind. I am desperate for a touch of heaven. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Come on. So I open up my heart to you. I open up my heart to you now. So do what only you can. Jesus, have your way in me now. I open up my heart to you. I open up my heart to you now. So do what only you can. Jesus, have your way in me now. 'Cause all I want is to live within your love, be undone by who you are. My desire is to know you deeper. Lord, I will open up again, throw my fears into the wind. I am desperate for a touch of heaven. Come on, wherever you are, would you begin to lean in? Doesn't matter if you're in your home, the presence of God is with you. So come on, can we sing together? Come on. 'Cause death could not hold you, the veil tore before you. You saw